She had learned to arrive early. Being early meant she could take a breath before people started watching her. It meant she could help her daughter settle before the room filled with noise and voices that blended into a blur. It meant she could pretend, just for a moment, that tonight was ordinary. The car slowed near the entrance of the hotel, where the Christmas dinner was being held. Soft lights hung above the doors, glowing warm against the cold evening. People in dark coats stepped inside, laughing, greeting one another, already relaxed. She watched them through the windshield, hands resting tightly on the steering wheel. In the back seat, her daughter sat quietly. She was small for her age, with a calm face that carried more thought than most adults she knew. Her eyes moved carefully, taking in everything. She watched the lights, the people, the way lips moved when they spoke. Sound did not reach her, but the world was still very loud. The mother turned around and smiled. She signed gently, asking if her daughter was okay. The girl nodded, then signed back that the lights were pretty. That small answer loosened something in her chest. She had almost said no to this dinner. It was not because she disliked Christmas or people. It was because events like this asked her to split herself in two. One part of her had to be strong, confident, and impressive. That was the part everyone knew. The part that ran meetings, made hard decisions, and never hesitated. The part that had built a company from nothing and kept it standing when others failed. The other part of her was quieter. That part worried about her daughter's comfort. It noticed small changes in her moods. It counted exits in every room. It worried about how long her daughter could sit before feeling tired or left out. Tonight, those two parts were pulling in opposite directions. The invitation had come weeks earlier. A formal company Christmas dinner. Important partners. Board members. People who expected her presence. The message had been polite, but clear. It would mean a lot if you could attend. She had stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Finding care for her daughter was never simple. She trusted very few people. Most babysitters did not know sign language well enough. Family lived far away. And even when she found someone, she spent the whole evening checking her phone, wondering if her daughter was okay. Bringing her daughter felt easier in some ways and harder in others. She worried about the noise, even though her daughter could not hear the way others did. Loud places were still overwhelming. Too many people talking at once made it hard to focus on faces. Too many eyes watching made her uncomfortable. But leaving her at home felt wrong. Christmas was about togetherness, and she did not want her daughter to feel like she was something to hide. So she had said yes. She parked the car and turned fully toward the back seat. She signed slowly, explaining where they were and what would happen. The girl listened carefully, her hands resting in her lap. When her mother finished, she asked one simple question. How long? Her mother smiled. She signed back. As long as you can handle, we can leave any time. That answer always mattered. They stepped out of the car together. The cold air made the girl shiver, and her mother quickly wrapped a scarf around her neck. Inside, the warmth hit them right away. Lights twinkled everywhere. A tall tree stood near the entrance, decorated with gold and red ornaments. People moved in groups, holding drinks, smiling wide smiles. The girl's hand tightened around her mother's fingers. Her mother felt it and squeezed back. As they walked in, heads turned. Some people smiled kindly. Some looked curious. Some looked away too quickly. She was used to it. She had learned how to read rooms the way others read reports. Someone greeted her near the door, saying her title first, then her last name. She nodded, returned the greeting, and introduced her daughter with a gentle hand on her shoulder. The girl smiled politely, though she did not understand the words. She understood the attention. They moved deeper into the room. Music played softly in the background. The girl could feel the vibration through the floor. She glanced down, then back up, unsure. Her mother led her to a quieter corner, near a window. She crouched slightly to meet her daughter's eyes and signed again, reminding her that she was safe, that she was not alone. The girl nodded, though her shoulders stayed tense. The mother straightened and scanned the room. This place represented everything she had worked for. Success, stability, respect. And yet, standing there, she felt oddly out of place. Not because she did not belong, but because she belonged in too many ways at once. People approached her, one after another. Compliments, small talk, plans for the next year. She answered smoothly, smiling when expected, listening when required. All the while, one hand stayed loosely connected to her daughter. She noticed how often her daughter's eyes drifted, how she watched mouths move, then looked away when she could not follow, how she smiled when someone waved, then lowered her gaze when conversation continued without her. This was the part she hated. She had spent years fighting to make spaces more inclusive. She had pushed for interpreters at events, for better access, for understanding. But tonight was not about policy. It was personal, and personal hurt more. She bent down again and signed, asking if her daughter wanted a drink or a snack. The girl nodded quickly. Food was easy. Food did not require conversation. They walked toward the table. The girl relaxed slightly as she focused on choosing cookies. Her mother watched her closely, memorizing the small signs of comfort, the way her shoulders dropped, the way her face softened. For a moment, things felt manageable. Then a group nearby laughed loudly. The girl flinched, instinctively, even without sound. Too much movement, too much energy. She pulled closer to her mother. Her mother felt a familiar wave of guilt. She wondered, not for the first time, if her ambition had made life harder for her child. She wondered if boardrooms and awards mattered when her daughter felt small in rooms like this. She wondered if she had confused success with safety. She had promised herself that her daughter would never feel invisible. And yet, standing there, she worried she had already failed. She looked down at her daughter and smiled again, signing something light, something comforting. The girl smiled back, but it did not fully reach her eyes. Across the room, people continued to talk, unaware of the quiet struggle happening in that corner. The mother took a slow breath. This was only the beginning of the evening. She did not know how it would end. She only knew she would watch closely, protect fiercely, and leave the moment her daughter needed to. For now, she stayed. And somewhere in that crowded room, a moment was already forming. One that would change the tone of the night in a way she could not yet imagine. The room slowly grew fuller. More chairs were pulled back. More coats were placed over arms. Conversations overlapped, rising and falling like waves. The mother felt it before she saw it. The shift in energy. The way the air seemed to thicken as people settled in for the evening. Her daughter noticed it too. The girl stood close to her mother's side, fingers brushing against her coat, as if checking that she was still there. Her eyes moved carefully from face to face. She watched people laugh without knowing why. She watched mouths open wide, words spilling out with no meaning for her. Her mother tried to stay present in two worlds at once. She listened as someone beside her talked about numbers and plans for the next year. She nodded at the right moments. She smiled when expected. At the same time, she kept checking on her daughter, signing small questions, offering reassurance. The girl answered politely but briefly. Her attention was fading. They took their seats at a round table near the side of the room. It was not the best seat, but it felt safer. The girl sat with her feet barely touching the floor, hands folded tightly in her lap. She stared at the centerpiece, a cluster of candles and pine branches. Her mother leaned in and signed, asking if she was okay. The girl nodded, then paused. She signed back, too many people. Her mother felt that familiar tightness in her chest. She signed back that they could leave soon if needed. The girl nodded again, but her eyes stayed heavy. She was trying. That mattered. Dinner began. Plates were placed on the table. Glasses clinked. Laughter burst out in sudden pockets. The girl flinched again, her shoulders rising without her realizing it. Her mother gently placed a hand on her back. She wondered if anyone else noticed how hard this was. Probably not. People were kind, but kindness often stopped at the surface. Few understood what it meant to exist in a world that was not built for you. The girl picked at her food, eating slowly. She looked up whenever someone spoke directly to her, reading lips carefully. Sometimes she caught enough to smile. Sometimes she didn't. Then it happened. Her fork slipped from her fingers and hit the plate with a sharp movement. The sound did not reach her ears, but the reaction around the table did. Several people turned at once. Someone laughed softly. Someone else made a comment she could not understand. The girl froze. Her face flushed. Her hands pulled back into her lap. She stared down, wishing she could disappear. Her mother leaned closer immediately, signing comfort, telling her it was okay. But the damage was already done. The girl's shoulders curled inward. Her eyes grew distant. This was the moment her mother had feared. She considered standing up and leaving. She could make an excuse. Everyone would understand, or at least pretend to. As she weighed the choice, she noticed movement at the edge of the table. A man stood a few steps away, holding a plate, clearly not part of their group. He hesitated, then stepped closer, careful and unsure. He did not speak right away. Instead, he lowered himself slightly, so he was at the girl's eye level. Her mother tensed, ready to intervene. Then she saw his hands. Slow, gentle movements. Clear shapes. Familiar language. He signed. "Are you okay?" The girl's head lifted so fast it startled her mother. Her eyes widened. Her posture changed. For a second, she did not move, as if checking whether this was real. Then she signed back. "Yes." Her voice was not heard, but her face spoke clearly. She smiled. It was not a polite smile. It was not the careful smile she gave strangers. It was open and bright, the kind her mother saw at home when she felt safe. The man smiled too, relieved. He signed again, asking if the food was good. The girl shrugged playfully and signed that it was okay, but the cookies were better. Her mother watched, stunned. The world around them seemed quiet, even though the noise continued. The candles flickered. People talked and laughed. But at that small space near the table, something rare was happening. Her daughter was being seen. The man did not rush. He did not exaggerate his signs. He did not look around for approval. He focused only on the girl, giving her his full attention. Her mother felt her throat tighten. She realized how little it took. Not pity, not praise, just understanding. After a moment, the man glanced up at her, silently asking permission. She nodded, still unsure what to say. He introduced himself simply, using both speech and sign. He explained that he knew sign language well, that it was not strange for him. She thanked him, her voice quieter than usual. The girl signed something quickly, clearly excited. The man laughed softly, nodding. He signed back, responding with ease. Her mother had not seen her daughter this animated all evening. People at the table began to notice. Someone smiled. Someone asked a question, but the girl no longer shrank. She stayed open, confident. The mother felt tears press against her eyes. She turned her head slightly, taking a slow breath, grounding herself. She did not want to cry here. Not now. The man stayed only a few minutes. He did not overstay. Before leaving, he signed goodbye to the girl, promising to come back later if she wanted. The girl nodded eagerly. As he walked away, her daughter watched him go, still smiling. Her mother looked at her and signed. "Did you like that?" The girl nodded hard. Then she signed. "He understands." Those two words stayed with her mother. He understands. She realized how rare that feeling was for her daughter. How heavy the world could be when you always had to adjust, explain, wait. The rest of dinner passed differently. The girl ate more. She sat up straighter. She watched the room with curiosity instead of fear. Her mother still noticed every detail, but the weight on her chest had eased. Across the room, she saw the man again. He stood alone near the wall, checking his phone. Not loud, not demanding attention. She wondered who he was. She wondered how he had learned sign language so well, and she wondered why the simple moment felt more important than any deal discussed that night. The evening was no longer just something to endure. It had become something else entirely. The girl kept glancing toward the other side of the room. She tried not to make it obvious, but her mother noticed. She always noticed. Each time the man shifted position or walked past, the girl's face brightened just a little. It was not excitement in a loud way. It was calm, steady comfort. Her mother felt a quiet mix of relief and curiosity. She had spent years learning how to read people quickly. It was a skill she needed in business. But this man did not fit neatly into any category. He was not trying to impress. He was not trying to gain favor. He had simply seen a child struggling and responded without hesitation. That stayed with her. After the main plates were cleared, the room relaxed. Jackets came off. Conversations grew less formal. People leaned back in their chairs, laughter softer now, less sharp. Her daughter tugged gently at her sleeve. She signed, "Will he come back?" Her mother paused, then signed back honestly, "I don't know, but if he does, you can talk again." The girl nodded, satisfied with that answer. A few minutes later, the man approached again, slower this time, as if careful not to interrupt. He held two small plates, each with a cookie. He raised his eyebrows slightly, asking a silent question. Her mother smiled and nodded. He handed one plate to the girl, then signed, "I remembered you said these were better." The girl laughed, a silent laugh that lifted her whole face. She signed a quick thank you and took a bite. Her mother felt something shift inside her. She stood slightly and introduced herself properly this time. They shook hands. His grip was warm but not firm in a way that tried to prove something. They spoke quietly while the girl ate and watched. He explained that he came to the dinner as a guest of someone who worked there. He did not like big events much, but it was the holidays, and sometimes you showed up anyway. She understood that. She asked how he knew sign language. He hesitated, not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. Then he explained. He had a child once, a son. The boy had been born deaf. Learning sign language had not been a choice. It had been love. He learned slowly at first, then fully, until it became as natural as breathing. Her chest tightened as she listened. The boy had passed away years earlier due to an illness. Talking about it was still hard, but sign language stayed with him. It was part of how he remembered his son, part of how he kept him close. He did not say this for sympathy. He said it simply, like a fact that lived beside him. Her daughter watched his hands carefully as he signed some of the explanation for her too, adjusting the words to be gentle. The girl's face softened. She signed something slowly. "I'm sorry." He smiled, eyes warm, and signed back, "Thank you." For a moment, none of them spoke. The room continued around them, but they stood in a small pocket of stillness. Her mother felt respect rise quietly within her. Not pity, respect. They talked more after that, about small things, favorite foods, winter weather. The girl joined in easily, switching between watching hands and faces. She no longer looked tired. She looked alive. Her mother noticed how patient the man was, how he waited for her daughter to finish before responding, how he never rushed or corrected her. She realized how rare that patience was. At some point, the girl signed that she wanted to walk around and see the tree again. Her mother agreed, but before they left, the man asked if it was okay if he joined them. She said yes. They moved slowly through the room. The girl pointed out ornaments she liked. He signed jokes about the ones that looked strange. She laughed again. Her mother walked beside them, quieter than usual. She felt something unfamiliar, not control, not responsibility, just presence. She realized how often she carried everything alone. Decisions, pressure, fear. She rarely let anyone step in. Watching someone else meet her daughter where she was felt like a gift. They stopped near the window where the lights outside reflected softly on the glass. The girl leaned against her mother for a moment, then signed that she was tired. Her mother nodded, brushing hair from her face. The man noticed and stepped back, understanding without explanation. He signed goodbye to the girl, then to her mother. Before leaving, he signed one more thing. "She's wonderful." Her mother swallowed and nodded. After he walked away, the girl stayed quiet for a moment. Then she signed, "He's nice." Her mother smiled. "Yes." She signed back, "He is." They returned to their table. The girl rested her head briefly on her mother's arm. The room felt less heavy now. Her mother looked around again, but this time she saw things differently. The dinner was still formal, the conversation still shallow, but her daughter was no longer alone inside it. She realized something important. All her effort, all her success, had built safety in the practical sense. But emotional safety came from connection, from people who understood without being asked. She wondered how many moments like this her daughter had missed over the years, how many rooms they had left early, how many smiles she had forced. She promised herself quietly that she would seek out more spaces like this, more people like him. The evening began to wind down. Coats were collected. Goodbyes exchanged. People thanked her for coming. She responded politely, but her mind was elsewhere. As they prepared to leave, the man approached one last time. He asked carefully if it would be okay to keep in touch, not for business, just as people. She considered it only for a moment. Then she said yes. They exchanged contact information. Simple. No pressure. On the way out, her daughter looked back once, then forward again. In the car, the girl signed sleepily, "I like tonight." Her mother felt tears finally fall, quietly, without shame. She signed back, "Me too." And as they drove home to the quiet streets, she knew this night had changed something deep inside her, not because of a dinner, but because of understanding. The next few days moved slower than usual. She noticed on the drive to work, in the quiet between meetings, in the way she watched her daughter get ready for school each morning. Something from that night stayed with her, sitting gently but firmly in her thoughts. It was not excitement. It was awareness. She had spent most of her adult life moving fast. Goals, deadlines, growth. There was always something ahead to reach for. Even after her daughter was born, she kept moving at the same pace, telling herself she had to. Stability required effort. Security required sacrifice. But now, she questioned what she had been sacrificing. Her daughter sat at the kitchen table one morning, drawing quietly. The sun came through the window, lighting up the paper. She hummed softly, unaware of being watched. Her mother leaned against the counter, coffee cooling in her hand. She realized how rarely she slowed down enough to simply observe. That night at the dinner had shown her something she could not unsee. How her daughter changed when she felt understood. How her shoulders relaxed. How her eyes softened. It was not about being entertained or distracted. It was about connection. She thought about all the rooms her daughter had learned to survive instead of belong in. At work, people spoke to her about deals and projections. She answered as she always did. Calm, direct, focused. But her mind wandered back to that quiet corner of the room, to the way one small act had shifted everything. During a meeting, someone joked about work-life balance. Laughter followed. She did not laugh. That phrase suddenly felt empty. Balance suggested equal weight. But her life had never been equal. One side always demanded more. That evening, she received a short message. It was from him. Nothing dramatic. Just a simple note. He hoped the week was going well. He said he had been thinking about their conversation and hoped her daughter was doing okay. She stared at the screen longer than she meant to. Then she replied, thanking him again, saying her daughter had talked about that night more than once, saying it had meant a lot. His response came later. He said he was glad. He said moments like that mattered. That sentence stayed with her. Moments like that mattered. She began to notice moments she had once rushed past. Sitting beside her daughter during homework instead of checking emails. Waiting an extra second for her to finish signing instead of guessing her meaning. Turning off the phone during dinner. None of these changes were grand, but they were real. Her daughter noticed too. One evening, while brushing her teeth, the girl paused and signed, "You're here more." Her mother froze for a second. Then she nodded and signed back, "I want to be." The girl smiled, toothpaste still on her lips. At work, she started asking different questions. About access. About inclusion. Not as policies on paper, but as lived experiences. She requested interpreters not as an afterthought, but as a standard. She asked employees what they needed instead of assuming. Some people were surprised. Some resisted. She did not back down. She understood now that leadership was not only about direction, it was about listening. A week later, she agreed to meet him for coffee. She told herself it was casual. 2 parents. A public place. No expectations. Still, she arrived early. He was already there, sitting near the window, hands wrapped around a warm cup. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. They talked easily, about daily routines, about small frustrations, about quiet joys. She noticed how comfortable she felt speaking honestly, how she did not feel the need to perform. He listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, his words were thoughtful, never rushed. They talked about grief without dwelling in it, about love without defining it. She told him how hard it had been raising her daughter alone, how strong she had tried to be. He told her strength did not mean solitude. That stayed with her. As they parted, he asked how her daughter was adjusting lately. She answered truthfully, better, calmer. He smiled. Over the next weeks, their paths crossed more often, sometimes by plan, sometimes by chance, always simple. Her daughter grew comfortable around him, not attached, just at ease. That mattered most. One afternoon, her daughter signed something unexpected. I like when people wait for me. Her mother nodded slowly. She realized how much waiting had been missing. Not delays, patience. She thought back to her younger self, the woman who believed speed meant success. That hesitation meant weakness. She understood now how wrong that was. Life was not a race. It was a series of moments that asked to be noticed. One evening, after her daughter fell asleep, she sat alone in the living room. The house was quiet. She reflected on how close she had come to leaving that dinner early, how easily she could have missed everything that followed. She felt gratitude, not for the event, for the pause. She knew change would not happen all at once. Habits took time to shift, but her perspective had already turned. She no longer measured success only in numbers. She measured it in smiles that were real, in conversations that did not rush past meaning, in a child who felt seen. And as she turned off the lights and headed to bed, she felt something unfamiliar yet welcome. Peace, not the kind that came from control, but the kind that came from understanding. Winter moved forward quietly. The days grew a little longer, though the cold stayed. Life returned to its usual rhythm, but something underneath had changed. It was not obvious to anyone looking from the outside. The company still ran. Meetings still happened. Bills were paid. Schedules were full. But inside the home, the pace was different. Mornings were calmer. She stopped rushing her daughter through breakfast. If the girl took extra time signing a thought, she waited. If she wanted to explain something twice, she listened twice. The girl noticed. One Saturday, they walked through a small park near their home. Snow covered the ground in uneven patches. The girl stopped often, pointing at footprints, at birds, at branches bending under white weight. Her mother did not check her phone. They sat on a bench, breath visible in the air. The girl leaned against her side and signed, "I like quiet days." Her mother smiled and signed back, "Me too." She meant it. In the weeks that followed, the man became part of their routine in a careful, respectful way. Sometimes they met for coffee. Sometimes he joined them for a walk. Sometimes he simply sent a message asking how the day had gone. Nothing was rushed. Her daughter accepted his presence naturally. There was no pressure, no expectations. He did not try to replace anyone. He showed up as himself. That was enough. One evening, they cooked dinner together. The girl stood on a stool, stirring slowly. He stood nearby, signing jokes that made her laugh. Her mother watched from across the kitchen, feeling something warm settle in her chest. This was not the life she had imagined years ago. It was better. At work, she continued making changes. Not announcements, not speeches. Real changes. Training sessions. Clear policies. Space for people to speak. Some employees approached her quietly, thanking her. Others simply worked with more ease. She understood now that leadership could be gentle without being weak. One afternoon, her daughter came home with a drawing. It showed 3 figures holding hands. One was taller, one smaller, one somewhere in between. Her mother knelt beside her. "Who is this?" she signed. The girl pointed to the tallest figure. "You." She pointed to the smallest. "Me." Then she pointed to the middle one and paused. "Someone who waits." She signed. Her mother felt tears rise. She hugged her daughter tightly. Later that night, after the girl fell asleep, she sat with a man in the living room. The lights were low. The house felt calm. They talked about the future, not in plans, but in hopes, about keeping things steady, about protecting what mattered. She admitted that she had been afraid for a long time, afraid that slowing down meant losing control, afraid that choosing connection meant sacrificing success. He listened, then signed gently. You didn't lose anything. You found something. She nodded. In the spring, they attended another small gathering. Nothing formal, just a community event. The girl moved easily through the space, greeting people she knew. She signed freely, smiled often. Her mother watched from a short distance. She felt pride, not in achievement, but in growth. Someone nearby commented on how confident the girl seemed. Her mother smiled and said simply, "She feels understood." As the months passed, the memory of that Christmas dinner stayed with her, not as a dramatic turning point, but as a quiet reminder. A reminder of how close she had come to leaving early, of how small decisions could change everything. One night, while tucking her daughter into bed, the girl signed, "Do you remember the dinner with the lights?" Her mother nodded. "That's when things got better." The girl signed. Her mother kissed her forehead. "Yes," she signed back. "It is." After the door closed, she stood in the hallway for a moment, letting the silence wrap around her. She thought about success. She still worked hard. She still cared about her responsibilities. But success no longer felt like a race she had to win alone. It felt like presence, like patience, like a child smiling, because someone took the time to understand her. That night, she sent a short message to the man. "Thank you for staying." His reply came soon after. "Thank you for letting me." She placed the phone down and turned off the light. The world outside continued as it always had. But inside, everything was different. Not louder, not bigger, just fuller. And that, she knew now, was the truest kind of success.